Hello, this is John Feldt with Blue Water Outlook, and this is the Hydro-Meteorological Assessment Briefing for Hurricane Sandy on Sunday, October 28th. Keep in mind that this briefing discusses only the water or hydrologic impacts of Sandy and not as much the other impacts that would be associated with this system. Here's the latest big-scale picture of Sandy. From a large-scale perspective, you don't see a real well-organized system, but if you move into a closer view here, you begin to see the structure of the system. You can see pretty clearly the rotation here, the circulation. Not a real clear eye, but perhaps a weak clearing in there indicating there could be the formation of an eye every once in a while, but it's not a real well-organized system. As we mentioned yesterday, the area here in the brighter white, the more enhanced clouds and the greatest precipitation rates are on the west side. Also some streaming bands, outer bands on the north side. But for the last couple days, we've really seen most of the precipitation on that western side, and that looks like that's going to continue again, at least throughout the day today. Now the setup at the surface here, I wanted to point out some of the main drivers of precipitation with Sandy. The setup at the surface here is an area of high pressure that's pushing cold air, northerly winds. That's that blue arrow pushing down from the north, and that's going to interact with this with Hurricane Sandy as it moves very close in and eventually onshore. This is a pattern for heavy rainfall as it interacts with this boundary, as well as significant snowfall due to the colder air. If we look at the setup from aloft, higher up in the atmosphere, we've been talking about this for quite some time. This is this trough of low pressure that's pulling in, negatively tilted, and here is Sandy right here, and this is going to be pulling into this region and being absorbed into this upper system. It's going to go through extratropical transition, and you're going to see characteristics of both a hurricane or a tropical system as well as an extratropical system or a synoptic type system. The latest track from the National Hurricane Center, I'm going to show in a minute here with the ensembles beginning to come closer together. There's going to be a higher confidence. Not a whole lot of change. It looks like anywhere from Delaware or New Jersey. There's still a fairly wide cone here, but it is beginning to narrow and greater confidence. What I do want to point out here is that look at the spacing here of the movement. Upon landfall, mainly between late Monday through Wednesday, it does slow down. There's some rotation going through as it goes through this transition into the upper system, and then it begins to move out as that system pulls it and moves out. From a rainfall perspective, that slowing could be very significant, and that could enhance rainfall rates then if it would move further away very quickly. Now here are the ensembles from this morning. I looked at both the American or GFS model as well as the hurricane models. This happens to be the GFS, and you can see the spacing is very tight now compared to the last couple of days, giving us a greater confidence where it'll move inland. So I think with that narrowing of that spread of models there along Delaware, New Jersey, that gives us better confidence, and I think as we go further, that tightening will also continue. Now from a rainfall perspective, here's the rainfall forecast from the Hydro-Meteorological Prediction Center. Heaviest rain is associated with that core of the tropical moisture. I'm going to mention in a little bit here some of the interactions with existing features inland that could enhance rainfall inland. Now the last couple days I've looked at the hydrometeorological assessment before the system has moved inland. I haven't really changed anything. I'm still expecting a high vulnerability due to synoptic interactions, the availability of tropical moisture, orographic lift, and also the large size of Sandy. Medium would be soil moisture and stream flow, which is generally in the average range. Storm movement, like I said yesterday, I'm still really puzzled on this. I want to bring this perhaps up into the high range. I think it could very easily be in that. And that's because, like I mentioned before, that once it moves inland, it's sort of going to, sort of pivot around that upper system for about a 24-hour period before it's lifted out. And if it does that, if it slows it further than expected, I think that could be high as well. Okay, now from a meso analysis or a small scale analysis, I wanted to talk a little bit more about this tropical moisture source. This is precipitable water, which is a favorite factor of mine. I look at this not just with tropical systems, but throughout the year with all systems. And with Sandy here, you can see right now a maximum of 2.4. inches. That is extremely high. It's not unusual for a tropical system, but it is very high. Assuming that this is going to be pushing inland as that system, as Sandy pushes inland, I wanted to look at the climatology of what that represents. And I put a star there for late October, nearing the 1st of November for a coastal area near landfall. And that's putting the precipitable water near the maximum, or well up into the 90th percentile. And when I see that, I expect extreme amounts of rain. So again, this is saying how unusual it is from a climatological standpoint to bring that tropical deep-seated moisture inland this late in the season. Second factor for a heightened vulnerability is orographic lift. The heaviest rain here is the areas in red and in yellow, and you can maybe see behind here the higher elevations, and as that moisture pushes up into that higher elevations, that's going to enhance rainfall on the east side of the higher elevations and snow on the west side. Synoptic interaction is also a high vulnerability. We do have a stalled or a stationary front dividing the cold air and the warmer air, and as that moisture pushes into that front, that's going to enhance precipitation into that frontal boundary as well. Now this is a model I sort of looked at here, and looks pretty messy, but I wanted to show here that when this moves in, you're going to see a complex meteorological situation with a number of things happening as it moves inland. First of all, this band of precipitation here, the heavier precipitation, I think it doesn't matter what the amounts are in this discussion. This is that push of the highest precipitable water associated with Sandy. But note also here we have a secondary band of enhanced precipitation in this region. We actually have a very smaller scale band there, and then up in the far northeast U.S. we have a band of enhanced rainfall. And this is due, again, once it moves inland, we're going to have many complexities here that are going to come into play. They're going to bring numerous bands of heavier rainfall, and that'll impact inland flooding in those areas as well. Now this will be changing over the next couple days as we get a better idea of how much rain's on the ground, but it does look like there is a heightened risk of inland flooding, primarily with that core of high precipitable water with Sandy, but also over other areas of the northeast U.S. as well. Mentioned yesterday snowfall, and that hasn't really changed much. The red here is a 70% probability of a foot of snow over the higher elevations of West Virginia, and that still looks like a definite possibility on the other side of the higher elevations in the colder air. So the bottom line on today's hydrometeorological assessment, once again, it looks like a historic rain and inland flood event. A wide variety of hydrologic impacts expected, including surge and wave action along the coast, near coastal pooling of water, urban floodings in the metropolitan areas, flash flooding in the higher elevations primarily, main stem river flooding, as well as snow. You might want to subscribe to Blue Water Outlook for information throughout the year. You can subscribe at bluewateroutlook.com. If you'd like information on updated briefings, you can also sign up for those at bluewateroutlook.com. Thank you for listening to today's briefing. I will be updating this either later today or again tomorrow morning. Thank you.